Mr. Ikeji joins us next to get his perspective on this demands, possibly that of government as well, on the minimum wage. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, the thing about this, I mean, year in, year out, I mean, maybe every 5 years when Labour comes up with that argument, it looks is the same thing, just increase the minimum wage. And government, as we saw, Governors Forum some time ago, not this year though, say, we can't pay this minimum wage. So do you think that we're approaching this the right way, both Labour and government?
Yes, I think Labour is approaching their angle the right way. But I don't think the government is approaching theirs the right way, because the inability or the failure, if you like, to pay existing minimum wages presently is not necessarily as a result of lack of funds, but in most cases mainly as a result of poor management of resources. You want to relate the situation with the affluence exhibited by politicians. Politicians exhibit so much affluence, and this is thrown to us on our faces.
If I could jump in there, and pardon me for that, and I hope we don't lose your train of thought.
Right.
You know, we've also heard several people tell us, well, look, the thing about those politicians, nobody's making any excuses for them, but 4 years or 8 years, they come, they go. But the ones in the service, the civil service, the permanent ones, they are there on a permanent basis. We've heard that theory where they tell you, go look at those houses, the major houses in Abuja, who owns them? You pointed to the civil service, that sector. So if we're fighting corruption, and if we're saying that politicians are throwing that much money, who is looking in the way of the civil service?
I think it's a systemic problem. The fact that the civil servant owns so much property that ought not to belong to him simply shows the problem in the system. It simply shows the corruption in the system. Even the legislators you speak about that stay 4 years, remember that their job is mainly done by the civil servants in their offices. So, their clerical offices. So
the civil service know far much more than the politician who comes for 4 or 8 years and they're off, no matter how much they're accused of filtering away.
Exactly. I don't see any reason why a politician should earn more than, should I say, an assistant director. No politician should earn more than an assistant director in a state civil service where things are properly done. That shouldn't happen. And that is the reason why there is this scrambling for political offices. So we need to redirect our efforts at restructuring the system. And when we talk about restructuring, we should look at two types of restructuring. Restructuring the system and restructuring the political system. When I mean restructuring the system, I mean restructuring the mode of compensation. You restructure who and what deserve to receive what compensation.
I think...
and then, sorry.
Go ahead.
Political restructuring talks about realizing that we cannot continue to be this same Nigeria that we are today. We need to unbundle the federation. We need to devolve powers to constituent units. We need to have stronger centrifugal forces in terms of stronger constituent units. Today, so much power lies in the center, and resources are tapped from the center. Now, when you unbundle the political structure, some people would like to call it geo-economic structure. When you unbundle it, you release some of these rights to tap resources to the constituent units, whether regional or, as some people would like, states. We've already been balkanized by creation of so many states. We ought not to.
Do we have the structure to sustain that? Because today, many will tell you, if you free up more resources from the center and you get down to the states, how many states have their legislatures stand up to the executive, if not tied to the apron strings of executive?
That is part of the restructuring. That is part of what I mean by making the compensation policies more amenable to performance, more amenable to service. You need to restructure that so that there will be there will be little attraction in political offices. The reason why a legislature will cow to a governor is because of resources, because of the money that will proceed from the governor to the legislator. If the legislator doesn't need the governor's money, he would tell the governor to his face what he wants to tell him. But because the legislator's funds, source of funds, is mainly from the executive governor.
You know what the argument, I think here has to go back to the National Assembly, because your analysis of it, or looking at the federation, which we say we are, and it doesn't really show that when it comes to so many other things.
Deceptively so.
I think if we talk about the workers, let's use the word, the workers' plight in the country, especially the average Nigerian worker, which we have seen that over the years they haven't fared well in the whole scheme of things. And you say we can also start to tie that to performance. We've seen some fantastic individuals that have given almost their all to the workforce. At the end of the day, nothing to show that they were once fantastic in the discharge of their duties.
Yes.
What kind of rejigging are we likely to see with the National Assembly when we say, let's see how we can bring this back to what it ought to be instead of what we're seeing at this moment? Because as Chamberlain put it, the man comes from a constituency, and one would have thought that he would go and argue the point of his constituents, but it doesn't look so.
Yes.
So the only constituency or agitator that the ordinary worker has now is Labour. And for some others, they still think that Labour is not coming up with a better argument for them to get what they need for their workers.
There's no argument other than we realize that prices are increasing in the markets. These are elementary economics.
And they increase every time.
Eh?
They increase regularly.
You mean the prices?
Yeah.
They do, yes. But after they've increased for a number of period, you then have to act. You may not react as often as they increase, but you need to act at a point in time. And that is in line with Justice Begore's recommendation in 2010, the tripartite Presidential Committee on Minimum Wage, when they recommended that there should be review of minimum wage every five years.
Some people will say that it is simply common sense. Apologies to Senator Ben Murray-Bruce.
Yes.
But the thing is, ideally, if wages are going up, or if productivity is going up, or if prices are going up, it also means that perhaps productivity, cost of doing business